You may have adopted the jacket, but I was bought with it. Here's a look at McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, The Dark Knight Trilogy, Gold Label Collection, Trenchcoat Bane. Born and raised in the hellish prison known only as the Pit, Bane has sworn a protector to Talia al Ghul, daughter of League of Shadows Ra's al Ghul. Determined to finish her father's mission to raise Gotham City, Talia and Bane also seek revenge against the man responsible for Ra's al Ghul's death, Batman. If anyone knows how to muzzle the voices of Gotham City, it's Bane. Before we get a closer look at Bane now with Trenchcoat, I'd like to first thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample we could have a look at. I'm going to now grab, of course, the tape measure so we can figure out how tall the figure stands. The initial Bane, being that, of course, this is the second time we've gotten this figure, it was actually a Build-A-Figure series that was tacked on to the Dark Knight Trilogy. I'll be bringing that Bane in a second. Meanwhile, though, Bane here is about 7¼ inches in height, or the figure's 18 centimeters tall. Trenchcoat isn't the only thing that does differ with this Bane and the one that we looked at before. Does it bring in that original Bane? You can see right away that they have changed the height of the figure. The original Bane was one of the big talking points about this figure, if I can actually get him to stand, was the fact that he was a bit tad too tall, especially when you compared him with, say, the likes of Batman. In the movie, in fact, Tom Hardy is shorter than Christian Bale, so the very idea of actually having a Bane taller, as tall as he was, bigger than Batman, didn't really make much sense. This Bane now, at least with jacket, does seem a little bit more closer in size to Bale. He could still have afforded to be a little bit shorter, but at least he's a little bit more closer in size. So the good news is that this Bane is closer in size with Batman. The bad news is, though, other than his trench coat, the figure doesn't come included with anything else. Some of the accessories, for example, that he could have come included with is maybe like the bomb, or maybe at the very least a display stand or trading card, but the figure comes included with squat. Here are a couple of hands, for example. I just happened to grab from the Build-A-Figure Bane. Some of the things that that figure got at least afforded was not only a taller, longer neck, but he also came included with hands. And I feel with a figure like this, because Bane, of course, in the movie, is always holding the sides of his jacket. You can't quite pull that off, unfortunately, effectively, with only being closed fists attached on the ends of his forearms. Like, for example, if you wanted to, say, bend his arm just to pretend like he's actually holding the sides of his jacket, it isn't quite effective, simply just because, again, he only has the closed fist. What I might, though, end up doing is that I might just take the hands that are off this figure, for example. I might just remove them all together, and I might then just replace them with the Build-A-Figure Bane hands. Because, of course, then, if you wanted to, you can have the figure almost more replicating the look like he's pulling the jacket from the sides. Kind of similar to this. And again, I'll just rinse and repeat that on the other side of the figure's body. Speaking, though, a little bit about the jacket, one thing about the jacket is it's a pretty good quality that they've used. It doesn't have some of the dinginess that goes along with the jacket that you would have had in the movie. It really is quite white on the inside. It looks like a tiny little white kitten. Would have really dirtied that up maybe just a little bit. The quality of the leather that they used, or faux leather material, does look pretty good. My only concern, of course, is anytime you deal with an artificial, like faux material like this, is how long down the road will it be before this material starts to flake. Obviously, as it is right now, it's been tailored really quite well. The panels of course, this faux leather material would have actually been stitched together quite well by McFarlane's team. And you can see as well, like even the interior of the jacket, it only is until you get to the back tail of the jacket that you see sort of like the loose threads left behind from the way they stitched it. But all in all, like, it's actually a pretty good looking jacket. It is fairly accurate to the way it would have looked in the movie. There are a few little luxuries, like, for example, I think he actually has a slightly higher collar, and he also has little fasteners on the sides here, which have completely just been done away with here for this figure. But at the very least, we do get ourselves finally a Bane that has a jacket, so at least that's something. The jacket, for all intents and purposes, can be removed. I find it's actually easiest just to kind of take the hands off first and remove them from the pegs. Once those are free, then you can just bring the arms back, for example, and slide the jacket off completely. One good thing of actually removing the arms, removing the jacket from the arms, and pop the hands now back into place, is it also gives me the chance to show you guys the comparison between this one and the Build-A-Figure Bane from before. If to look at them, you will see, for example, like there's definitely, just not popping the leg off in the process. My Bane actually has one bum leg, but just to put them back to back, you can see, like, there is a case where I'm sure they probably have shortened the legs. Though to look at the legs seem to be identical. Maybe it's also, the torso. I think the biggest one is probably the neck. The neck is one thing that's really changed between the two figures, because I guess if you were to put them side to side, The neck is definitely longer, but like the shoulder area is definitely different as well. To look at them from also the front here, so you can see the difference between the two. There are a few little color changes that they have made that wasn't maybe the case with this one. Like this one has a little bit more of a brownish green, for example, whereas this kind of sticks to more of a military green. Head sculpts are very similar to one another. I mean, I would be really fooled to think that this is not just the exact same head sculpt, that they just have not reused again. But it's definitely enough changes, I feel, that we're not simply just getting a Malibu Stacy with a brand new hat. You're getting a completely different build of something that's obviously been changed here on Bane, whether again it be the legs, whether it be probably even like the torso, but like the torso seems like it's probably the same length. Yeah, there's definitely something that they have increased on the figure, causing the height difference from one to the other. Arms look also to be the same between the two. The chest and obviously the vest that he wears looks also identical. And it seems to also be the case that they're using the exact same pants. There's a little bit of color variation. I almost in a way feel like this coloring of the Build-A-Figure Bane has a slightly more accurate vest to maybe the lighter green that we get here instead. But in that, I mean, I'm definitely impressed to see that it wasn't just a case that they gave us essentially the exact same figure. Because again, like to put them back to back like this, you can see that there's definitely a height difference between the two. Moving this Bane now out of the way because we've already had a look at him in his own separate review. Yeah, the details on the face sculpt, I'm still happy with how this one did turn out. Whether you really like the idea of Bane looking like this in the movie, he sort of looks like an angry walrus. I don't know who actually, I can't say that I was the one that coined that term, but he does certainly look a little like an angry walrus. The mask, for what it is, has been painted well. There's some nice silver there on the front of his mask, his breathing apparatus, and there's also some additional silver that they add to the top. The face, which only is the thing that Tom Hardy was able to do to kind of read his emotions, actually does look quite good. I mean, it looks as good as it could be for really being Tom Hardy, considering that most of his face is really hidden by the mask. We've already looked at the fact that the vest, again, is nicely done. I feel like it probably could have been just a little bit darker, like the Build-A-Figure Bane. He does have, again, one glove on the one side of his hand, just a bare exposed hand then on the other, and just, again, like the military pants. Done nicely in a fairly dark black. It's not quite fully black. It's almost got like a slightly brownish tint to it. And the boots themselves are a little bit more shinier of a finish. Does bring a little bit of extra coloring to that, to an otherwise very dark, very, almost, I don't want to say dull, but the colors on Bane are really the most interesting things to look at. And that was also the case also in the movie as well. Now, the articulation on this guy is still the same as the Bane before, even though, again, like this guy's going to be a little bit shorter. Head rotates all the way around. The head can look up and look down, and you can also move it back and forth as well. So if he seems a little more confused, you can also do that too. Arms come out easily at 90 degrees, although this one arm is really tight on this figure. I have already tried to heat this up. I may even have to heat this up again, but it gives you at least a 90-degree angle bend. You can take those arms and rotate them all the way around on both the sides. Figure does have a bicep swivel. Figure does also have a double hinge on the elbow, and the figure has a rotation in the hand. The upper torso, now this, by the way, is a softer plastic. This is all hard plastic up at the top, though, at least the body that's underneath. But this is all clearly softer plastic, probably allowing the figure to have as much posability as he does. Legs do split. They're on ratcheted joints once again. Take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. And there's a swivel at the top of the thigh. Figure has a double hinge on the knee. There is no articulation that I can see, at least at the top of the boot, so that's just probably been painted over top of the lower half of the leg that was sculpted, but at least he does have ankle articulation both forward and back this way, back and forth, I should say, this way, and the figure does have toe articulation as well. At the end of it, again, it's not just a case where, yeah, we got the same figure again, just this time around we got ourselves a completely new jacket. No, this time around, actually, we're getting ourselves a brand new Bane, at least in the sense that he's a different sized Bane. One that's a little bit more accurately scaled to the Christian Bale Batman from before. Let's go ahead and actually get, in fact, on his display stand, because I just don't want to have to worry about this guy falling over on me. Yeah, then to bring back in the original Bane, this guy right here. And, of course, maybe what I'll do also as well is get this guy also on a display stand. I seem to have like a stack of display stands off on the ready. Yeah, there's definitely a height difference between the two, so it's not just the case where we get ourselves a jacket this time around. And once again, to bring back in Bale Batman, he looks a little bit more in line now with the new Bane. He could have, granted, still been a little bit shorter to be more eye-to-eye level with Christian Bale's Batman, but I think he's a little bit more closer in scale to the Batman, that if you didn't get the chance, and maybe, for example, you weren't all that interested to build the Bane in the first place, and maybe you were just randomly picking, well, not randomly, but you were certainly selecting certain characters over others and just never got around to building Bane, you get at least the benefit of getting still the same sculpt, just with shorter proportions. And with this Bane, this actually looks a lot better on the shelf with the other Dark Knight Trilogy figures we've already had a look at. Yeah, other than a trading card and a display stand that the figure didn't come packed along with, which I'm not all that disappointed that the figure didn't come included with either. I have obviously enough display stands to go around, and even though the fact that the figure didn't come included with the trading card, I'm sure the trading card would have just been a picture of Bane anyway, so I could probably just do away with it. The only thing that's disappointing about this release of Bane is the fact that he didn't come included with the proper hands for holding the sides of his jacket. Now, this, at least from my standpoint, can be remedied by simply just using the hands that came included with the Build-A-Figure Bane. But if you didn't get the chance, let's just say, and you never got the chance to build that big Build-A-Figure Bane in the first place, well, unfortunately, you won't have then the hands, unless you were just lucky enough to get the hands. I don't even remember which figure came with those hands in the first place, but I feel like the hands are the thing that finishes the look to the figure. Because, of course, if you wanted to have him look like he did in the movie, where he's holding the sides of his jacket, it's not something that can be effectively pulled off by having closed fists on the ends of his forearms, other than just having those hands being omitted, which is, again, I think the one thing that's kind of a bit of a detriment. I do like the look of this Bane, and I especially like the idea that he's more properly scaled with the rest of the Dark Knight Trilogy figures. The jacket is a nice touch. It's also one thing that does make this figure, I feel, a selling point that if you already had the Bane, you would have already right away said, okay, well, I could get myself this Bane because at least it does have the jacket. And of course, helpful reviews. I'd like to think that these are helpful reviews. We'll all be also here in place to tell you guys that, yeah, it's also a shorter Bane too. But I feel like the jacket is one thing that over time may eventually start to flake. And that's not necessarily to the quality of McFarlane's team, but it's just the type of material that they've used. It does look fantastic right now. I just hope it looks fantastic several years from now, as of course when you use artificial like faux leather materials, it's always tend to be proning to flaking. And that's not even just McFarlane's team that's doing the, the kind of outfits that they're choosing. That even goes for like $200 to $300 Hot Toys. So don't think you can escape. When you get a high-end collectible, you have to kind of go along with the territory of high-end collectibles having problems down the road. And while, again, I do like to look at this jacket, it's not the most screen accurate, but I think it's still close enough. Big thank you once again to the folks over at McFarlane's team that did provide the sample of the Dark Knight Rises Gold Label Edition trench coat wearing Bane. Have you had the chance yet to get this figure? If you have, let me know down below in the comments section. Also as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you'd like to be on board for more McFarlane Toys reviews. First of all, if you hit that subscribe button down below, that's helpful. You can also as well turn on the bell notification. That's equally helpful. But also, if you'd like to play catch up, let's just say you're new to this channel and you didn't realize right away that this guy has over 10,000 videos. No fooling either. If you'd like to go back and check out some of the other things I've looked at from McFarlane's team, popping up also plugging a playlist at the very end of this video will be a playlist of other things I've looked at from McFarlane Toys. So definitely check that out if you have a little bit of time on your hands. Of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.